What's going on, everybody? You're probably wondering what this is about as far as my life as a spiritual diviner in Palo Mayombe. Palo is just one of those spiritual systems that's not exactly easy. Okay, and a lot of people still haven't heard about it, even though more people are becoming more aware of the actual tradition itself, because people are actually online posting more about it. I did want to give my little 2 cents on there, but first I want to tell you my life as a spiritualist, how I got into this particular journey, especially coming up in a household where I was pretty much Christian, but I also came up in a household that was from the deep South. So that part of Christianity is probably different from most parts that people actually see, because they were really in tune with what the Spirit wanted them to do. So my grandmother, for me, was the matriarch of the family. Everyone knew who she was. She was pretty much the glue that put everything and everyone together. One thing that she taught me for sure was how to love God and how to be in the Spirit. And part of her teachings is the reason why I decided to go into an African traditional religion to begin with. It flowed with everything that I actually learned later on. So my story started long ago. When I was a child, every summer I would go and visit my grandmother down in Alabaster, Alabama. That's where my family is from on my mom's side. So I was definitely close to her. We would spend all summer. Sometimes we spend more than just a summer with her. One thing my grandmother did more than anything else, she used to give us scriptures that I still use to this day. So much love, so much wealth of knowledge when it came to actually her position with God and how she felt about God and how she believed that God worked for her. Coming up in that lifestyle and knowing that she was also a pastor for churches, and she had her own church that she pastored herself. So you can imagine on Sundays, we were there pretty much the whole day. Anything that dealt with church, marriage, she was always there. People would ask her for her advice. I seen her do so many great things, even when it came to people that we seen in the stores that couldn't afford groceries. I remember her actually taking money out of her own pocket to give to somebody that couldn't afford their groceries. So growing up with a family like that and growing up with my grandmother, who actually knew who she was within the Spirit, helped me out a lot. So there was a time that came as I started getting older. Church wasn't quite my thing anymore. I wasn't feeling it that much anymore. I just couldn't relate to it. It didn't touch me the way that I felt like it should have touched me. And then a few years later after that, my grandmother died. Now, one thing I know about my grandmother is that she always was the one to call me to tell me that she was always praying for me, and I knew that she was. But the moment she died, the first thought that kind of came to my mind was, well, who's going to pray for me now? It kind of put me in a position where I no longer wanted to be part of that system. So after a while, my grandmother passed on. I kind of got away from church, kind of got away from Christianity altogether. I was probably close to the age of 20, I want to say about 23. I asked God to show me who he was for me. I don't know why I said that prayer, but I absolutely did. And it's kind of like that space where everyone was starting to awaken spiritually and starting to come into their own spiritually. The first place that most people went to, especially myself, was looking at what they did in Egypt. So I kind of went down that rabbit hole for a few years, probably about 3 or 4 years, just studying anything that I could study. I was trying to learn the language. It was like a discovery for me. I kind of figured out that, hey, these are black people that were actually living in these pyramids. And I think that's what fascinated so many people, because this whole time we didn't think that they were black or dark-skinned African people. We used to always think that they were more like Arab type of people or that type of complexion people. We didn't see ourselves within that image. So once we learned that these were actually Africans, and that these were actually people that look like us, you know, it was something that we could finally hold on to, that gave us a little bit of power, or a sense of power of saying that, hey, we came from something better than just slavery. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of came from. We didn't know any better. We just knew what we knew at the time. And we're just trying to grow and develop and learn and just get into this place where we know we feel like we are some kings and we are really queens out here. And we just want to see ourselves as royalty. We no longer wanted to have this image of us being slaves. And that's what my generation kind of awakened to. Not that the knowledge wasn't out there, the knowledge was there, but as far as like mass grown and mass known, this is what we kind of came into. So it was actually a really exciting time because people were really starting to connect, and it was almost like a us against them. It was like all the Hoteps against the Christians or the Israelites. You know, it was just a good mix, a good mingle. It was exciting, and then it got to a point where it started to get old, as far as like I really didn't quite understand the dynamics of why people were always beefing. But I started to get a deeper pulling within myself. So I got to a point where I met a good friend of mine who was from Africa. I was asking him if he had any bracelets that kind of look like this one, right? You got anything else that kind of looks like this? Because I want some bracelets like this. I want to start selling these to people I know and in my community. Just get out there and start selling them. So what he would do is that every now and then, whenever he went back to Africa, he would pick these things up for me, and then he'll fly them back, and I just give him the money for it, and then I go out and I sell these particular products. He was from Benin, so he started telling me how they have these festivals in Benin, and how they have these mbatos, okay, which are these, it's like a big haystack, right, and it gets mounted with a spirit, or they do whatever they gotta do to get the spirit in there, and then it starts lifting up, and it starts spinning around and dancing and stuff, and they lift it up, and you can see that there's nothing in there, and then they put it back down and start shaking and dancing again, and then moves around. And so I was really intrigued by that, and I started doing some research, a little bit more research on, okay, what is African culture? As far as what Egypt or Kemet was showing, it is pretty much the same thing. You got your greater deity, which is the God of everything. Then you have your lesser deities, which are like the aspects of God. What I have been learning made sense. And because I went through that particular school of learning, it helped me to recognize where I wanted to be. So I was really looking into like voodoo or voodoo. I started listening to this one content creator by the name of Dynast Amir. He would actually film and go back and forth to Africa and show all these different places that were there within the culture. And I really started getting hooked and linked into that because it just astounded me to see how life was over there. Even though it was really poor in a lot of these places, it was still beautiful because they still maintained the culture and the beauty of that culture. So I ran into a friend of mine that I used to always speak with at work. He's an older guy who used to walk back and forth. We'll just speak about life and spirituality and stuff like that. When I finally got around to telling him like, hey, I've really been looking into voodoo and this is something that I wanted to do. And then he was like, okay, well, now that you learn this information, especially about Egypt and stuff, let's see what's actually working right now. So he knew that I was into voodoo. He's like, that's good that you're looking into voodoo and all that stuff, because that is a system that's working. But also I want you to look at this other system that I know about called Palo Mayombe. But the spirits were just pulling me. They were like literally pulling me in this direction. So personally, it was either going to be voodoo or Palo. I didn't know anything about Palo. So when he asked me about Palo, I was like, what's Palo? I never heard of that. He said, yo, why don't you take a look? He said, hey, come talk to my godfather. Here's his address. I let him know that you want to get a reading from him. And you can just kind of start there and see where your path will kind of end. So little did I know, I would go there, I'd get this reading from him. And one of the first things I seen once I walked into his shop was this thing that most of us call Nganga or the Nkisi. This is this pot that's sitting on the floor. Now, again, I've been doing a lot of research dealing with African spirituality. So I always seen it on TV as far as something that was like this, or Nkisis that were like this. I just never seen them in actual person. I'm looking at it like, yo, I finally seen one. Like, this is where my journey has brought me to see one of these things in person. And I didn't have to go to Africa for it. This is right here. I'm in the DMV area. This is the real deal. Like, whoa. And you could just feel the energy off of it. You could feel the power from it. Remember, this is my first reading I ever got in my life. And coming from the background that I came from, whew. All right, so I'm reading, I'm listening. I'm like, all right, okay. Like, yeah, that sounds about right. That's what's kind of going on. But, you know, a little skeptical still. I was still in that world where I was in disbelief. So when it came down to it, he gave me everything that I needed to do written down. on a piece of paper. After like a couple weeks, some of the things that he told me that was going to happen to me actually happened. Like certain things about seeing spots in my eyes, and I ended up getting these things that are called sleepers. But those spots are going to help me actually see spirit. And that's exactly what happened. Like I got spots in my eyes, and then I started seeing spirit everywhere. Like it actually started happening just exactly how he said it was going to happen. That's when I became a little bit more of a believer. And then from that point, you couldn't get me away from that place. I mean, I showed up every day. I just started calling him before I came up there, because the place that I was doing my practice at was about 45 minutes away from me. So it took a lot of time. I mean, that's the minimum, 45 minutes away. If there's traffic, it could take up to an hour to get there. So I was down there every single day. I was burning so much gas. Like people started knowing me for being in the shop. Like if I wasn't in the shop, people would ask about me. That's how much I was in there. That's how much I was studying. I was there all the time. So it really helped cultivate me within Palo Mayombe. I was there the most. Like I would be there, I would work, and to the point that he actually trusted me. I got to the point where I got a reading where it said it was time for me to get scratched. So from that point, it was love. Everything that he did, I was there right with him. Whenever he told me to do something, I would write it down. Like I got a whole book full of notes from stuff that he would teach me every single day that I was there. You don't have to know everything. All right, so that's kind of like the background story of me getting into Palo. So a lot of you might be lost and trying to find a spiritual system, and something might be pulling you. I'm not saying that Palo is the place for you. What I am saying is do your research, and you might have, and do your due diligence to actually get into the place where you want to be. So my goal is kind of give you a glimpse of what it is to actually be in Palo. For one, I'm gonna say this straight up, and a lot of you might have already experienced it for yourself. When it comes to Palo Mayombe, you gotta remember that it was cultivated in a place where people speak Spanish. So as a Black American, getting into a tradition like this, starting off, it was difficult for me. One thing, I don't know how to speak Spanish. Another thing, I don't know how to speak the Congo language. So it's a mix of both Spanish and Congolese language. With that being said, as an American, it's almost like you got to learn 3 different languages. My godfather is Panamanian. He speaks pretty good English, so he's teaching as best as he can. But the songs that we're learning and all that stuff that we're learning and the prayers and stuff that we learn is different. Not saying it's impossible, but it's different. So me telling you that is me telling you that you don't have to know all the songs and all the prayers to be a good spiritualist within Palo Mayombe. That's a fact. That's the truth. Ocha is a little bit different. When you make Ocha, and I was there for a lot of ceremonies in Ocha because my godfather is also a practitioner in Ocha. So my world was kind of mixed with both. I would see both sides of it. I'm not initiated as of right now. I will say this, it's going to be quite a learning curve, and you're going to really have to take time to learn how to do the work. Because that was how I gained most of my knowledge, was by what I actually see, what I touch, and what I hear. That was the main reason that I learned as much as I learned. If I didn't have the time, if I didn't take the time to go in there every day and to learn and to be there until the place closed every day, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I wouldn't have the knowledge that I have right now. How your house does Palo is how your house does Palo. Because there could be a house down the street and they do Palo, but it's not the same way that you do Palo. And if they showed you what they know, you could easily be like, man, that stuff is not real. And if you showed them what you know, they could easily be like, yo, this stuff is not real, based off of the knowledge that they have learned. But once you start getting more accustomed to Palo, you will start to see that everybody does what they do differently. The only thing that matters, and I mean the only thing that matters when it comes to Palo, is does your stuff work? So you don't have to know all the songs. It's better to know the songs. You don't have to know all the prayers. It's better to know the prayers. But when it comes down to it, as long as you are doing what you need to do, you're working from your heart, the Congo spirits that are with you are going to make sure that job gets done. And it's still going to be a beautiful, beautiful practice for you. As a Black American, you're going to have other people that speak Spanish that are in Palo and that come from different houses and never seen you work. And they're going to automatically think that they are better than you. That's what it is. You're not going to get it from everyone. That's okay. You just do your work. They're going to try to test you. You just do your work. They were never in the same house as you. They can never tell you what you do know or what you don't know. And you're not obligated to give them anything, all right, at the end of the day. If you're looking for a place to start your spiritual journey, I'm telling you, Palo is a great place to begin that journey. And I know because of this great awakening into spirituality, there are so many different options out there. I just say choose your place to spirituality wisely. Don't just jump into anything. Do your research. When it comes down to it, if they aren't willing to let you kind of sit around and kind of figure out if this is a place you want to be, you might not want to be there in the first place, because you don't want to set yourself up in a position where you get initiated and you're not able to learn anything. You're not able to get any type of information. I was very lucky when it came down to that. My godfather teaches a lot. He doesn't mind teaching. He doesn't mind doing the work. He loves doing the work. And this is all that he does at the end of the day. He is a spiritualist through and through. He grew up in it, and then he decided to get into Palo and then to Ocha himself. He's not easy. He doesn't trust easy at all either. As far as you finding a house, just find somewhere that you're comfortable. All right. And then once you get in it, you'll start to reap the benefits of it. And not everybody's going to have what they call an inkisi or a pot. You might not ever get one. You might just need to get scratched or get initiated in Palo just to live a good life and go about your life however you need to go about it. Been through plenty of ceremonies that was like that, where people just get scratched and I never see them again. That's perfectly fine. I want to say the best part of the whole thing is that I am in a system where I know there's always a solution to problems. I'm never in a situation where I'm in lack as far as what I need to know or what I need to do. I have my own Inkisi, so if there's any questions that I have, even when I'm doing work for people, I can simply, and I still have my godfather that's around too, so I can simply ask my godfather, for one, what do you think about this situation? Because I always have somebody that's there that's higher than me that knows the information. And also, more than anything, have my Inkisi that's there. And that's a friend that's going to be with me for the rest of my life. And then we're going to figure out how to get that work done. I think that is the coolest thing when it comes to spirituality, is just being that medicine man, being that healer, being that problem solver within somebody's life and getting them to the next phase in their life. So if that's something that you are looking to do, I hope this video has helped you as far as trying to make a better decision on what you want and how you want to actually start your career as a spiritualist. So until next time, stay blessed, stay elevated. I love y'all. Peace.